Good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are tonight. Um, yes, we have my mother's spark, and we literally just lost Catskill, New York, as I came on, and there she is, and there she's back.
Sorry, guys.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I'm super excited to have these ladies on. My mother Spark's been on several times with me, and Catskill, I think this is our first live stream together,
I
right?
think so. We might have been on like a group stream at one point.
I think with Jason probably, or Hudson.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, but we have quite a crowd already in the audience. Coffee, Wolfang, KP, Magic. Hey, Mom Ranger, and well, that's you. So yeah, folks, I wanted to. Sorry for the late start. We were having connection issues and fighting cameras, but behold, we are here. So without further ado, ladies, why don't I give you the floor because they don't want to see me. I'm ugly and boring. And you two introduce your channels and yourselves and what it is you talk about.
Go ahead, Catskill.
Okay, thanks, Christy. So I'm Catskill New York Prepper. I'm Allie. Most of you may know me by. I am just a mom raising a 5-year-old right now, but I do have a almost 25-year-old and almost 22-year-old. So I'm raising children in two different worlds, basically. So it's like a little bit of a do-over here. And I would definitely say the way I'm raising my children is polar opposite. I would say I got into like more hardcore prepping about 5 years ago, right before the pandemic per se. And I live in the Catskill Park, which is where my name came from, which is about 2 hours north of New York City, on a mountain in the middle of nowhere. So during, 2020, it was nice to connect with everyone, the roaming prepper, and then eventually my mother's Spark. And I've just kind of been doing the mom thing and the prepping thing ever since. So that's basically me in a nutshell. Go ahead.
My name is Christy. My channel is My Mother's Spark, and I am also a prepping channel and I like to give my opinions on a lot of things that's going on in the world because I don't follow suit with a lot of other people. I think a little bit differently than most. I got the pleasure of meeting Allie at Hudson Valley Survival and Prepping's meetup last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. We clicked the first time. I'm also a mother, and I have a 15-year-old and a 26-year-old. So I just do what I can to prepare them the best I can, as well as prepare the family.
Well, thank you, Pete. And that's I was like, where's my mute button? It's terrible. Technical, and the engineer can't compute his own computer. It's been one of those days. So actually, part of the reason we started talking about this topic was I had put a story that had happened to my daughter on TikTok, and I wound up getting it back from my mother's Spark. She's saying, hey, my daughter said, hey, you just hit like some benchmark of views, and then it actually made its way to Christy, who then sent it to me and says, dude, but I didn't see it, I was at work. But it had to do with a stalking incident that happened at a store, and we all got to talking and then something came up in Allie's chat on Instagram, and we started collaborating on that, and that's kind of where this conversation spawned from. But I wanted to kind of focus on y'all's perspective as far as preparedness, because I'm finding that I really think the number of women who are preppers is way bigger than anyone thinks. I think a lot prep in secret because they may not have support, or they just do it because they do it. And I think that's a perspective we really needed. So I'll start with this question. And for the new people who are just getting into it, maybe learning about it for the first time, what would you recommend? Where do they start? How do they approach it? How should they be thinking about it?
Christy, I'll let you go ahead first this time.
I think the most important thing, because we as females tend to stress over things more than we should.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, it's a take a step back, and we're also very critical thinking. So we organize. So the best thing is to not stress yourself out. You don't have to get everything all at once. Start small, little by little, build up, um, and don't be afraid to get out and do it.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
I would definitely agree with everything you said. And the other thing that I would say is I think that prepping, right, definitely had a stigma behind it for a long time. And here I am, a woman who loves skincare and makeup and all the girly things, but I also understood fundamentally the importance of having toilet paper and food on hand, because I was not going to go at 5'2", 120 pounds, go fight crazy people in the store.
Mm-hmm.
So did I call myself a prepper in the very beginning? Absolutely not. I think it's just, like Christy said, is a mindset, and not to be afraid to, just kind of listen to your gut of what makes most sense, and to just, care for your family. You don't have to wear a prepper badge on your shirt. Nobody needs to know anything, but it really is just a mindset. And thinking back on this, I realized that it's something that I kind of did lifelong on so many different levels. So yeah, I would just say go with your gut, do what you think is best for your family, and just stay 2 steps of the curb. And for me, prepping has always been about getting information and just knowing what's coming, because even if you have all the food and all the you know safety procedures and things on hand, that might not do what you need if you're not expecting certain things to happen.
Yeah, those are very good points. And the unexpected kind of thing is funny. You mentioned the toilet paper, and I immediately thought of that lady we all saw on the news, or that family that had a minivan full of toilet paper. And I'm wondering if they've used all that toilet paper yet. Uh, it's yeah, that's it. But those are true points. So, and you mentioned about being ready for things that aren't expected, and that's the kind of stuff that's happening in the street.
Yes.
And that's kind of where we wanted to go is so there's been, and I don't know, and probably should have started with a different question, but I think there's a lot going on right now, and it seems like women are being targeted, females or children. Um, when you're out and about, how would you recommend someone who maybe is just now realizing this? How should they practice situational awareness? How should they be thinking of, wow, what's around me? So,
Go ahead, Allie.
Okay. So for me, I think situational awareness didn't come naturally, and I'm aware of that now. Funny enough. It's definitely something that I've made myself more aware of, even though I've always suspected people. Sometimes I've found myself in my own world. Now, caring for a 5-year-old, especially in today's day, I'm definitely more situationally aware. When it comes to children, like, I always have a death grip on my child. I don't, always. I got, around the wrist like this. That's for one. For two, I'm always looking where I'm going, when I'm getting out, parking lots, all sorts of things. And I'll tell you a very brief story. But I was at a store one time. I put it actually on a video like a year or so ago. And, someone on St. Patty's Day came in and was just acting very suspect at the counter with the ladies there. It was like a hair store, like hair care products. And he needed a license to purchase stuff there, and he didn't have one, and he was being weird. And I just walked over and I interrupted, and I had my son with me, and I just said, hey, my husband's coming in. He's a police officer and he needs something for his skin. So he's not a police officer. He was not coming in, but I immediately disarmed the situation, or diffuse the situation, because I was thinking immediately, let this crazy person know that a police officer is about to walk in the door. And with that, the man got flustered and walked out. And I just immediately locked the door of the store. I didn't work there. And the women were like, "Thank you so much. Is he coming in?" I'm like, "No." But we called the police, and he was down at the next store harassing the next person. And he apparently was on drugs, got arrested. But, you know, you don't know. He was just acting really bizarre. So kind of being aware of a situation and trying to diffuse it without, you know, causing
Escalating, yeah.
escalate.
Actually, that was really good thinking on your part,
I
because
don't know where it came from, to be honest with you.
you weren't just thinking about your own situation. You saw the big picture in that
Yeah.
whole room, and you realized there are other people in jeopardy.
And I also knew that he wouldn't suspect me of doing anything weird, because I was just, oh, you know, I acted kind of silly. Like, you know, my husband's coming in.
Okay, so you made it look like it was just some innocent question to the guy, and you just happen to mention he's a cop.
I asked the lady at the counter, I interrupted the weird alteration that was happening.
Oh man, that's crazy.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. I said my son was there. He wasn't, but I definitely did a video on it, and it was a really crazy situation.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, if any of the mods can find that video, feel free to put the link in the chat.
Somewhere in there.
Definitely. So what I would suggest is, like Ali said, I've always been very aware of being situationally aware. But in order to hone those skills, the first thing I would suggest is start becoming a people watcher. Go places where there's a lot of people. Even if you don't like being around a lot of people, sit in a corner and just watch people's behaviors and interactions and so forth. My husband and I, we like to go downtown once in a while on the weekends and watch basically the sobers and the drunks and how they react, because it helps us to tune in our skills of people watching. The other thing I do is, if I'm in a restaurant and there are booths around me, I'm not saying eavesdrop, but just kind of pay attention to what is being said around you, because you may pick up on something that you need to leave or let the restaurant know, or whatever, that they may have something planned within the restaurant. So, I mean, you don't have to sit there and listen to the whole conversation and butt in and so forth, but just practice picking up on certain words if you hear them, you know. One of the biggest things too, guys, is people have got to put their phones down. They've got to put their phones down. They've got to take their earbuds out. If you're sitting there, and I see it all the time, especially in stores and restaurants, and I'm guilty of it myself, but I'm usually with my husband, who is paying attention. So we kind of take turns, but you see them just glued to their phones, and they have no idea what is going on around them. We've seen people walk into walls and poles and everything else doing the stupid Pokemon thing, you know. Just put your phones down and start watching people, paying attention, and, you know, trust your instincts. If something is wrong, if you feel like something is wrong, something is probably wrong, and you need to learn to adjust what needs to be done based on that feeling. Either it's you leaving or you going to somebody else to have somebody there with you. Just kind of start practicing those skills by going into the busy areas. You know, go to the mall. If you have a mall, go to the mall.
Yeah.
And then another thing I would suggest with situational awareness is, when you do go to restaurants, you do go to movie theaters and so forth, make sure you sit somewhere where you can see everything that's going on. Because once you get those skills of watching people, if you're sitting somewhere where you see everything that's going on, you're going to know when somebody comes in and they're up to no good.
Yeah, Winning Streak even put the times by people I knew and trusted. See, and that's another thing, because the stranger danger we're all taught. But yeah, there's another comment. See, and when I did that video on TikTok, I was shocked by the number, and I said this backstage, the number of women that came out and said this exact thing happened to me, or something similar. Everybody had this story. It was thousands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we really understand. Well, I mean, we all do as a community, but I think the general public doesn't realize the dangers a woman faces going out the door.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, and Ali just brought up a great point with her story. Have you Christy, have you been in a situation where you realized someone else was in trouble and you took action, or how would you approach that?
I have. I've been in a few situations, but a lot of times it's usually kids that you see weird people going up to. And that's a big thing. And people are so afraid to get involved anymore. They'd rather pull out their phones than get involved, which makes me sick. But I have had kids like on a street corner waiting for the bus, the school bus in the morning. I used to work really early shifts. And I went to the bus. I was going to work and I drove past the bus stop and I saw someone there that I didn't normally see there because there's a routine. It's the same kids there all the time, the same parents. And when somebody else is there, it's not supposed to be there.
It's
You know it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of drove by at first and then I was like, no, you know what? No, something's wrong. And I turned around and I went back and I pulled up and I got out with the kids and I was like, hey, you guys, the bus is going to be here. I'm going to sit here and wait for you. You guys look really bored, so forth. And I stood there and the person actually left. I didn't have any kids in this. My kids were already out of school at that point. But I think I would like to think that I stopped something from happening. I don't know because the person left and the kids got on the bus and I did let the bus driver know, hey, there was somebody kind of creepy around. So I was just hanging out with the kids. So I'm off to work now,
Yeah.
But it's those things. Don't be afraid to get involved. Don't be afraid to get involved. You could save a life. And
actually, something happened to a guy. He and I worked together, and my industry is weird because you stay there long enough. I'll work for you, then 2 years later, I get promoted. They move you under me, and now you're working for me. But we all are friends. And he was on a business trip. I believe it was in Denver. And in the middle of the day, 2:30, he and his wife, he's about my size. She's petite. She's maybe 5'2". She's smaller. They're walking in business attire. They just came from a lunch, and they stopped for traffic at a corner, and a guy backhanded his wife. And if it wasn't for the fact that he tripped when he was doing it and hit her in the chest, and then the hand hit her in the face, he said, Peter, had he hit her with that force, it sounded like a coconut when it hit her chest, like dunk, that hollow sound. He said, had he hit her in the face, he'd have probably been surgeries for months. And she hit the concrete. And but she was holding his arm, so they both went down, and the creep went down. And so the waitress came running out with a towel. She didn't know what to do, right? So she's trying to help the wife, and he's rolled up with this idiot. And apparently, he said, I was telling people, somebody help me, somebody call the police. And he said, I get hit on the head with something, and I look up, and it's a teenager videoing the fight. That's how close they were. And I said, nobody helped you, because if I see someone hit someone's wife or kid, there are going to be 4 or 5 people beating this. It would be a question of stopping everyone else from killing the guy. And he said they videotaped, so he wound up getting this guy down. And people were saying, you're hurting him. And he's like, he just knocked my wife out. I mean, and it just, he came down. He's from Canada originally, and he said, it blew my mind. He said that would never happen, and he grew up in the country. He said never would have happened. It would have been a beating for the guy. Mm-hmm. They were taking videos. He said the only person that helped was a couple visiting from Kentucky, a retiree, went to see his granddaughter at the university, and they were just walking around, and he witnessed it, and he came over to help. But he said nobody helped, and as soon as the cops showed up, everyone just walked away. And to your point, I don't think people are not standing up when they see something wrong. And I think that's just making it worse. I mean, are you noticing that? Because we're all in different parts of the country, all 3 of us.
Mm-hmm. I was on my way to work in Westchester County, which is right outside of Manhattan, so about 30 minutes. And it was broad daylight, and I was making a left-hand turn off of like a parkway, and a biker, like a cyclist, just totally crashed in front of me. Oh. I immediately stopped, pulled my car over and jumped out and said, oh my gosh, are you okay? And the person was so taken back that I stopped and was like, I'm fine. Like, I can't believe you stopped. I can't believe you got out of the car. I'm like, what was I like? I see someone get hurt. I'm going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they were fine. And I was like, are you sure you don't need me to drive you? Like, are you sure you want me to call someone? And they were like, no. And of course, I'd also thought like, oh, you know, it was a male and I'm a female, but it was a busy roadway and it was, you know, broad daylight. But that just, it shook me how much somebody was so amazed that a random stranger would stop. Isn't that what you're supposed to do on some level?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, people don't do that anymore. They don't even stop to help. Like if we see a lady by herself at night changing a tire or something, we'll pull over and or their hood up and they're by themselves, we'll pull over and be like, "Hey, do you need some help?" And people don't do that. Now, I would never pull over by myself if it was a man,
Right.
but you know, we do pull over if we see someone like that or car accidents and there's nobody around. We will stop to see if we can help. I can't tell you how many car accidents we've seen here. Matter of fact, we had one. It was a semi that rolled, and we
Oh,
were the
wow.
first ones. We were literally right behind it. We had came around the corner right after it rolled,
Wow.
and my husband ended up pulling the guy out of the semi, and then somebody else stopped, and I had one end of traffic, and the other person had the other end of traffic, stopping traffic because it was a blind spot. So they were flying around the corner, and we held everything up until the EMTs got there, and saved this guy's life because the engine started on fire, all kinds of stuff. But the guy's okay.
Right.
But people don't do that anymore, and yeah, they really need to.
And I think a lot of them are afraid they're going to go to jail, and it depends where
Yeah.
you live.
Yeah.
Look at New York City.
Well, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So who was it? So the Marine was choking a guy who was assaulting people. He wound up killing him. He's been charged. They just let the other young man out that somebody assaulted his mom and he stabbed the guy. I don't remember the story exactly.
But yeah.
But they threw the case out. So, but he had to go to court. So, I mean, these are two working class guys. They tried to do the right thing. And even if he gets off the charges, how much money did he spend in court with lawyers?
And his name, and, you know, especially being in New York City. I mean, I have friends that work in New York City who literally say these are grown, large men who are certainly capable of helping someone in need, who definitely think twice about helping someone now. That's shameful. Not certainly not them being shameful. The environment that we've created is shameful.
Right. And it's and I don't. So my daughter also was fostering. She's a vet, you know, and she fosters animals, and she had this very dumb pit bull that had been abandoned, and she took it in. It was probably God's dumbest creature on earth. Very sweet, very stupid. And she went for a walk, and it was a dog park where she could let him off leash, and he was just being stupid. He ran off, and somebody tried to grab her over the fence. That dog went over that little fence, then went into the car with the guy and had a conversation with him, and then she retrieved him, and the car took off. So needless to say, as long as the time she had him, he became my favorite pit bull ever. Like, he knew me as the guy who had treats, because he got cookies every time I showed up. But have you found that having an animal with you maybe changes the dynamic a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
And I don't think it's necessarily even, it has to be a large animal. I mean, I've had larger dogs, or, you know, more vicious dogs, but my dog right now is a 6-pound Chihuahua Yorkie, and she chases the bears out of my property. She alerts me if something's here. She is fearless. So yes, someone could probably just kick her, but, you know, she sets the alarm off. So, you know.
Yeah, I think animals are definitely a deterrent. Definitely a deterrent.
And she makes a commotion.
Yeah. My big girls, they're about 70 pounds, and they are good and they listen for the most part. But when we go out, they're very excited. So they pull a lot. They like to pull, and I'm smaller. Even though I can hold them back, it doesn't look like it because I'm so tiny.
Yeah.
So people will walk way around me holding my dog because they're afraid that, you know, she's going to pull out of my hand. So it's definitely a deterrent having the animals.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would think also, even if, like, you know, I have my potatoes here, which they have no perception of how big they really are because they chase cattle as a breed. So chasing a human, we're much smaller. Why not? But the bark is very deep. I think the barks in general at your home, like someone trying to break in. Have you had experience? Because I'll bet you even the Chihuahua making a commotion is not something a burglar wants to have to deal with.
Oh, no, she's obnoxious when she gets going. You know, she'll get to know some of my friends and she's fine, but then she'll be fine with them. But if she sees them go near my son, she gets all upset. So she, you know, that's her little boy, you know, don't go near him. So yeah, no, she's not, you know, we're always chasing her because we don't really put her on a leash here because there's not many people around. So when someone does come, you know, she's at their ankles. She's an ankle biter. So
Coffee's having a technical issue with YouTube. That's actually happened to me too. I've gone and live streamed and liked, and the like goes away, and then my chat goes away. But then I'll come back 2 days later and I'm in the chat again. So
we'll put three of them together and, you know, it might explode. So.
Yeah, no kidding. Wolfgang is off the leash according to Yardbird. So wait, hold on. Somebody runs amok. There you go. They're having a whole party in the chat, ladies.
Oh, good. I can't do that, so.
It is the fun group.
So we're talking about us, right? We're adults. We've lived life. We kind of learned some lessons the hard way. But you both can probably speak to different aspects of this. When it comes to protecting your flock, how would you educate children and teens? And that's two very different behavior patterns. So I'll leave you all to decide who wants to start this one off.
Chrissy, you could go first if you like.
Okay. So one of the things I did with my son is no matter where he was, no matter what he was doing, I always wanted to know where he was. I also, when he was a teen, had the tracker on his phone so that if he did not tell me where he was, I knew where he was. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, invasion of privacy. No, that's my kid. They're a minor. I pay the bill. I'm going to make sure he's alive and safe. So there's no such thing as privacy when it comes to your kids' phones, your kids' tablets, your kids' computers, period. I don't ever want to hear that from anyone. It doesn't exist. If you want to protect your children, they are going to lose privacy. The other thing is, as my son got older, it's funny because as the kids get older, they don't realize you've pretty much done everything they're doing. So you already know one step ahead what they're planning 99% of the time. So my son used to go to bonfires and he used to always tell me, oh, I didn't have a signal. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't call you. I couldn't text you. I didn't have a signal. My phone was dead, this and that. So this mom would go through his Facebook and find his friends. And I would start contacting his friends that I knew he was with. And I'd be like, hey, this is Michael's mom. You don't have to tell him that I'm texting you. I don't want to talk to him. I just want to make sure he's there. He's safe. And this is my phone number if anything happens. And they would be like, yes, ma'am, he's fine. Thank you very much. Like they were respectful. And he never knew for years that I was doing this.
Smart.
Until probably the last couple of years. But every time he would go and he would tell me that, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And he never understood why I was cool with it. But it was because I was already texting his friends that were there with him. He just never knew. But it was a safety factor. And it's letting them know, you know, no matter where you are, if you think you're in a situation that's going to turn out bad, you can tell your friends, you know what, my mom just called. She is pissed off and I have to go home whether I am or not. And then you call me and you say, come pick me up, mom. And I will be there. You know, use me as an excuse. I don't care if your friends like me or not. I don't care. If you're in a situation that's going to get you out, use me as the bad guy if you have to, you know. So that's what he would do. Or if it looked like his friends were going to go do something really bad, it was, no, my mom won't let me go, even though I didn't know anything about it. I was the excuse, and I was perfectly fine with that. So it kind of taught him, you know, pay attention to what your friends are doing. Do you really want to get involved? Everything has an outcome. So is the outcome something that you can live with or not? And every time he'd leave the house, I'd be like, make good choices. Make good choices. I'd never say be good. I'd always say make good choices.
Yeah.
Because I don't think kids are good or bad. I think the choices they make are good or bad.
Well said. Well said. I absolutely agree everything you said, especially with an older child or older children. I will say this: my oldest, my daughter, who's going on 25, because I had a new phone the other day, she literally texted me the other day and said, "Why don't I have your location anymore?" And I said, "Oh, I got a new phone. I didn't set it up." She's like, "Okay, can you please set it up? Because we share each other's location."
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of funny because, she felt like she was the parent there. So yes, we do keep our locations on with the two older, just for safety. I mean, they're especially older, so I don't really, care what they're doing, but though they always check in. So I'm very lucky like that. With the little one, it's I think it's a twofold for safety, right? So we want to keep an eye on our kids. We want to make sure they're safe when we're around. I got the mom grip on them. But there's another kind of level of safety we as parents with younger children have to be aware of, and that's like safety from the environment, whether it be school or certain groups of friends or certain parents, and who we are allowing our children around. And just with all the insanity going on, I'm very accepting of all different groups of people, whether people think that or not, but I definitely am. It's just when it comes to my child and how I want to raise my child, I'm going to be the number one person to display what he needs to see at an appropriate age. And whether that means you homeschool your child or you're definitely in your children's school and knowing who's coming into contact, I don't believe in the excuse of, well, it's in the children's school, what can I do? Because I definitely was a single mom, and as a single mom of two older kids, I wouldn't have been able to homeschool. So I definitely understand that plight. So not everybody has a privilege to homeschool, but it doesn't mean you can't figure out angles to be involved in the school and to volunteer and to show up and to know what these teachers are saying to your children, because it's a slippery slope how quickly they become the authority over you. And I use the example a million times when I was younger, how I came home crying because I thought my parents were going to put holes in the ozone layer because they told me global warming, we didn't recycle. My parents were like the devil. So, that was just a little quick thing in like 8th or 9th grade. And I really was upset with my family, really upset with them because we didn't recycle, because they were drilling it into my head in school. And now they are bombarded. They're not students, they're not children, they're like social warriors.
They're inductees, yeah.
And I even looked into private schools around here to see maybe if we spent a little money, what would it be? Well, they have whole courses on social action and all sorts of nonsense. It's just crazy. So it wouldn't even be worth paying money. It would almost be worse than the public schools. So I do homeschool, but it's very important to know who your children are around at this point and control that.
Know the other parents too.
Yes.
I was a scout leader for my son's group, and we got 2 West Pointers, 2 Aggie cadets, for those of you who love the Aggies, and 3 other military kids. Like, this was a really good group of kids. And there was one kid, he went off the rails at about 14. He cursed at my wife, and I about kicked his butt. So I messaged the mom, because that's the number I had. I was like, hey, your boy did this, and you may want to talk to the husband and maybe correct him. I just told him to go home. We didn't escalate, and she said, oh, I'll talk to my husband. Husband called me and cursed me out. And I said, buddy, when the boys were half the age they are now, I told the parents if I saw them running stray, I would let you know. You're not the first dad I've contacted. Most of them were gracious, clearly you're not. So I'm not going to tell you anything anymore. But if he comes here again and curses or throws things at my spouse, I'm going to go out and kick the crap out of him. And then I'm going to have him arrested. Yeah. And if I see you, I'm going to do the same to you. I never talked to that guy again. But yeah, I was his Cub Scout leader for years. Yeah. But he was also the dad that would show up, drop his kid, and then fall asleep on the lawn chair while we were trying to herd the little boys so nobody set fire to the forest, He wasn't that dad who went in. And to the teacher point, Allie, one of my boys called a English teacher a a Marxist succubus. I don't know where he came up with that in the classroom.
I wonder.
And so I get a call from the principal saying, well, you need to pick up your boy. I'm like, oh, Lord. So I go over, and he's there, and he's got this grin on his face. I'm like, you shit. What did you do? And the teacher, the principal explains, he called the teacher a Marxist. What, is she a Marxist? Because pointing out someone's political leanings is not disrespectful if the person, and the principal just said, just take him home. I'm not even going to write this up. And she threw the paper in the garbage. But I would always question the boys when they came home, and my daughter. What did you learn today?
Yeah.
What did they teach you? I had one teacher tell me, my daughter said I should have passed this test. And I looked, I'm like, you did that math right. It was the alternate math.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no. And so I did long division, and I said, your answer's correct.
Right.
And so the teacher told my daughter, who does your dad think he is? She said, well, he's got a degree in aerospace engineering. So
kind of smart.
There's that. So I emailed the principal. I was like, can you please see to it? So she got a passing grade. But yeah, I had to challenge. It was continuous. They're not teaching subject matter.
And you know what? That brings up another great point, is that I think one of the best things we could teach our children is to be those children that stand up and have no problem speaking up. Speak up. Challenge people. Not be disrespectful, not be, a little jerk or whatever. But don't be afraid to say something, question something. That's what how my mom raised me, clearly. And, I don't really care who I offend. If I feel strong about something, I'm going to say it. And you know what? When I'm wrong, I'm also going to say, geez, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Because you know what? You have to be gracious as well. But you can't be afraid to, stand up and speak up, because then you're just raising little followers, and you're perpetuating this issue that is, been going on, but is definitely present now.
No, totally agree.
Yeah. And part of that too is you have to start when you're young to have good communication with them.
Yeah. You
don't want your children so afraid of you that they can't bring stuff to you that concerns them.
Yeah.
You have to, even as Allie, you said you were a single mom, even as a single mom, especially to boys, you answer a lot of questions that if you had a husband or a boyfriend there should be answering. But you have to make sure that they are comfortable coming to you with those things, those uncomfortable questions, I guess. And once they become comfortable coming to you with those uncomfortable questions, that's when they're comfortable enough to come to you when something is wrong at school, something is wrong at church, something is wrong at the neighbors. This is when they're going to come to you because they trust you enough to where you have answered those weird questions that they didn't even want to answer or ask you in the first place, but you took the time to answer it to where they understood. So now they're not afraid of you to come with those things that are troubling them.
Right.
The other thing too is I saw a comment earlier with KY saying to practice with your kids. And it's funny because it popped in a memory in my head when Michael was real little. He used to play outside, and we had a friend coming over that we used to bowl with. And my son did not recognize this person, but this person couldn't remember which house we lived in, but he remembered my son. So he pulled up to my son and asked him, where does he live? And my son ran all the way home, full speed, burst in the door, like, trying to catch his breath. He was out of breath and so forth. He's like, Mom, some guy's following me, and I was like, what? So of course I tore out the door, saw it was my friend. I'm laughing. He's laughing. He's like, well, he didn't answer me. You taught him right, but I followed him home, But those are things too, that as you teach the kids when they're young, you'll see those things you taught them sticking because they'll surface later.
Yeah. No, it's so have you had other people's kids wind up in trouble and they came to you? Because I had that happen a lot, where my especially my daughter, because all her friends were mostly other little girls. One called and like, something's happening at my house, and she's crying on the phone to my daughter, and she came to me and goes, so and so, something's, her her mom and boyfriend are fighting. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm taking you to pizza on a
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wednesday at 10.
Yeah.
So she called and spoke to the mom and said, we're going to go to pizza. And the mom said, that's fine. And yeah, I did not want to be up till midnight with two yapping girls at a pizza place. But you know what? I needed to get them out,
Yeah.
her out. I mean, have you had that where someone else's kid could not go to anyone and wound up coming to you?
I have. So Michael actually, he had came to me one time. He was a young teen, and it was already past the point where he tells me everything, you know. And he had told me a situation that one of his friends was in. She did not come to me. I had to go to her, but I had to do it almost incognito because what was going on in the home, Child Protective Services had to get involved. So the outcome ended up being that Child Protective Services did get involved. Someone did get arrested. There was a restraining order. That person was no longer allowed to be around her. But he had come to me and told me all this and was like, I don't want her to know, you know. And I'm like, no, no, no. I was like, this has to happen, you know. And so he did call her and got on the phone with me. And then I was like, listen, honey, you know, you're not in trouble. You are not in trouble at all. This is not your fault, but I need to know because something has to be done to stop it. And we ended up stopping the situation. But that was probably one of the worst ones that I had to get involved in because psychologically it bothered me to be involved in that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've had something similar happen with one of my daughter's friends. And probably because of the way I raised my daughter, she seems to always get involved in these situations and wants to
Mhm.
take a stand for her friends and then
Mhm.
ultimately brings it into my hands. I wouldn't say I've had so many of the very similar, but a couple. And I've also always been the mom that, you know, I drove to prom. I picked up from prom. I'm sitting outside till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I definitely remember on, I think it was her junior prom, I waited and I picked them up from like the diner. I mean, these are really good kids, so I didn't have to worry too much. But on the way home, one of the other children who was out at, you know, I don't know where they went, but anyway, one of the kids at prom, they had flipped their car from drinking and driving. And I insisted, no, I will pick up, I will do this. And all the dances, I would drive anywhere. I did not care. I drive a lot for just my life. So I never mind staying up and driving. And it's just, as long, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're drinking, just let me help you and get you home safe. And all the friends always know that I'm that mom. She says I'm the clueless mom. I'm the cool mom. So I don't know about that, but yeah, no, you have to make yourself available for your kids. And as they get older, and you might agree, you also have to be humble with your children and relate. Like, if maybe you did handle something wrong, or maybe you did get angry because you had a bad day, it's okay to apologize to your child and let them know, like, hey, I'm a parent and I'm just doing my best. And you're right about that. And I'm sorry. That makes them relate to you better. You know, that's okay because, you know,
Mhm.
we're parents. We're not given a handbook when they're born.
No.
You know, this is how you parent. We're learning. We're people.
Mhm.
No, for sure. And man, we could do a whole video just on this topic of dealing with the dangers for kids. Uh, and it's funny because, you know, we have two women and one dude on a chat. We've all seen similar from different kids in our circle.
Yeah.
So it kind of leads to my last question here. Is it just me, or do you feel there are more crimes against women and children, or are we getting better at reporting it? This is a loaded. I kept the controversial one for the last question because I knew this was going to be loaded. What are y'all's thoughts?
I mean, I'll just say that I think that depending on where you live, there's definitely probably more crimes against children and women because people are getting away with more. Some of the more democratic cities and things like that, where I think a lot of these criminals are less afraid of things. You know, we also have like the crisis at the border there. There's more people coming in with more of that trafficking going on. So that's one hand. I also do think that there's a lot of women that say they're being victimized when they might not be. And I'm not, I'm trying to be careful with what I say because I don't want to offend anyone either in any regard. But, I think sometimes, everyone can be a victim too. So I would say my answer would be that there is more. I would say there is more, but you gotta. I think men have to tread lightly around women sometimes too, because some of them are off the hinge.
Mhm. I would agree. I think women and children are definitely more targeted because they seem like they're easier targets. Um, do I think that there are more men out there that are not speaking up? I do. And I think it's probably because, they're probably taught not to, that this stuff only happens to women. Um, but I definitely think that women and children are more susceptible for that reason. But I don't think it's
You don't think it's unique?
I don't. I think it's been going on for a long time, but now more people are talking about it. And I'm hoping that the men that this happens to are not afraid to speak up as the women started speaking up and follow suit because it does happen to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely men are being victimized and they're taught not to speak about it. And I think also women victimize men, even if it's not like a physical abuse situation, more of a mental abuse, whether it's engaging in family court or just, threatening them. I'm going to say this. And, it's a hard situation all around because I've definitely seen that amongst some male friends of mine and their women counterpartners.
Those are really good points. And do you think so? You think in general the culture is such that people aren't coming forward the way they should? Maybe more so than they did in the past, but not the way they should. So a lot of these crimes might be underreported.
I think for the men they are.
Yeah, I think, definitely for the men. And I think men always didn't come forward because
Mhm.
who would believe them, right? Like
Mhm.
that's the whole thought. And I also think that, maybe it's just more of the wrong people coming forward more. And saying,
Mhm.
like, poor me,
Mhm.
when they did something that maybe wasn't what it was, because I've definitely heard of those situations too, you know. But for sure, I mean, here's the thing: we are women, and children are smaller, women are bigger. This is why, you don't want me as your firefighter. Not that I couldn't go through the academy, but nobody wants me carrying them out of a building because it's not going to happen. I don't take offense to that.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, no, this is believe it or not, we've been almost an hour.
Wow.
I got into the conversation with you guys and I just looked up, I'm like, whoa. So I guess what I'll do, we got a few minutes left. I'm gonna open the conversation to the audience and see if there are any questions from the audience. And Lee brings a good point, my daughter. I feel that young women are sometimes blame themselves
It's a good point.
and education. All right, so and then yeah, Oki's talking about the globalist behavior of unmaking men and women and the way it's been. But anyway, Wolfgang looks around the room. So, folks, do you have any questions for this amazing panel we have out today? And so we'll give them a few minutes while they think. I like Wolfgang's comment. Wolfgang looks around the room. That's like high school when they're like, "We want you to go and you know answer the question." All the kids are like, point at their friend. He knows. I've never done that to anybody.
We like to talk, so it's fine.
I think that's probably a good communication topic too to teach your kids, no matter what age they are or what gender they are, is anybody can be a victim, and to know what a victim looks like because they could look like you and me, but there could be more to it,
Yeah.
And if you teach them young, I think as they get older, they will start stepping in more, unlike the people nowadays that don't want to be involved or,
Yes.
So question from Lee, how much support from your neighborhood do you get? And I guess
As
you can
far
say the
as
community.
in general, we look out for each other. We tell each other if something is amok, if somebody's in the neighborhood that shouldn't be, or that's suspicious. We actually communicate pretty well in our neighborhood. A lot of us have each other's phone numbers. Storms, we check on each other. During the COVID, we would check on each other. During the government shutdowns, we would check on each other because my neighborhood is a lot of government people. So if people needed food, we would help each other. We've done that a lot in our neighborhood.
I would say pretty much the same thing with mine. I mean, we have a very, very, very small town. So, I just walk down the mountain road here and everybody's kind of hanging out in town. So if, I something, someone would help me. It's very good life. And I also have a wonderful community of moms that I'm connected with. And it took a long time to build being where I am, but I'm very thankful that I can, get together with these women and their children and their husbands. And, I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about someone has a cell phone showing my 5-year-old something inappropriate, because that doesn't fly with the group of people I created. And it's sad you have to be that way, but when technology is the way it is, you do. That's protecting your child.
So Lucky had a question. Do your kids understand preparedness and do they discuss it with their friends or others?
I don't think my 5-year-old understands it. My older ones called me like doomsday prepper and all sorts of things. But now I will tell you a story. My daughter came here and I live in the Catskills and the gas stations close all around me. And she's here and she's on barely a quarter tank of gas. And this is when we had all the gas issues in the very beginning and stuff. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, there's no gas stations open. You're not going to get back. She's in Albany. Well, I went into my reserve and we filled up her tank and she thought that was amazing. So as she's gotten older, and I would say the last 3 or 4 years, she's really come into her own of the whole preparedness thing. And she thinks it's pretty cool that I have things on hand. So I would say for the older ones, my son just thinks it's normal. You just go into the back room and get what you need. So
You go shopping at the house.
right. Yeah. Yes. The older ones go shopping. The other one gets what he needs or the younger one gets what he needs.
So Matt Shad, so apparently Christy and I answered in the chat, what pie do you like? I'm a key lime pie unless I'm eating Italian, then it's tiramisu. Christy, Allie?
Apple.
That's apple.
Apple.
You two aren't alike at all, no.
I make a good apple pie, I will tell you. And I pick them and can them myself. So.
Hey, can I answer the last question?
Sure.
With the kids?
Yeah,
So my kids are both older. They are 15 and 26. And one of my kids are special needs, so he does not understand quite what's going on in the world, but he still gets the basics of if anything happens, stay where you are because I know where you are. As far as the other one, he is aware. He does help me doing the canning and storing and so forth. He does help me. He's learning. And he does not discuss what we do. However, because he watches my live streams, so he knows what's going on in the world when I give my opinions, and he's paying attention more to what's going on in the world too. So he's forming his own opinions and speaking up about them with other people that are siding with the mainstream. So he puts a wrench in their thoughts and makes them think more too.
Yeah. And it's funny because you just got to get your kids to start thinking, wait a minute, that commercial doesn't make sense. And from there, all the other mischief comes because they start questioning everything. If that's not true, then what else isn't true? That guy isn't telling the truth. It just, and again, then your kid calls the teacher a Marxist. So, oh.
Yeah.
But Mad Shad said he likes pie, all of them. So, okay. So don't see anyone else with a comment. Now we're talking about pie because apparently it's almost dinner time and everyone's hungry. So key lime pie. So Allie, Christy, thank you so much for doing this with me. This has been super awesome, and I think it's overdue. I don't think we do enough that are oriented, kind of led by the ladies in the conversations. And I thank you both because, you know, it's just the things that are going on are not cool. And so I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and I'll let you make a closing comment. Anything you want to share, words of wisdom, cool phrases, whatever it is, with the audience before we shut it down.
Christy, you want to go first?
I just want to say to the ladies, don't be afraid to whoop some ass. Just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you can't knock somebody on their butt. You don't have to do it physically. You can do it with words too, and use your mind to break them down. That's pretty much it. Come check out my mother's spark. I do have a meetup coming in October. I did have to move it from Tennessee to Virginia. Information is on my page. So if you want to come meet me and hopefully Catskill, hopefully, hint. Yeah, I'll be close to you. Yeah. And Pete can get on a flight and I'll pick him up from the airport.
Yeah, I might drive that one. Okay. Just for giggles. I got family all the way there up until I hit. No, it's North Carolina. So yeah, I'll probably be fine.
Let's do it. Ready. I'll do it. In October, Christy?
Yeah.
All right.
October 13th, 14th, 15th.
All right. Awesome.
That's cool. That sounds like a fun road trip.
Yeah, I'll just say too for everyone, ladies, men, just don't be afraid to speak up. You know, just speak up and don't be afraid. I feel like in the day of social media and Facebook and friends and family, don't be afraid to offend anyone. Just speak your truth and just let people know where you stand. And you know what? That alone will deter a lot of people because they know that you're not messing around and you're not playing. And you'll find out really quickly who your friends are and aren't, and family. Yeah. Sometimes it's sad, but you know what? I think at the end of the day, it's a greater evolvement of yourself, and the people who may take a step back from you that really love you and know you will come back. And just, you know, be gracious and be honest, and don't be afraid to, if you feel like something's wrong, don't partake in it. Just don't, because that's perpetuating something that we all don't want, right? Thank you, Pete and Christy. Yeah. So much.
Thank you very much.
Folks, thank you so much. Ladies, if you hang on for a sec. And folks, we will see you all on our next live. Please don't forget, subscribe. My Mother's Spark, Catskill, New York Prepper. They are both on Instagram as well. And their Instagram content's great. It's phenomenal. So go check them out. And other than that, you guys stay safe and stay blessed. And we will see you all later on.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.